Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody for having this forum. It's very interesting, and thanks to all of you for coming. The first premise that I want to propose is that the art market is a financial market now. It has become this, and it is a totally unregulated financial market. I will also try to define ethical. I define ethical as a protection for the investor or art collector, and unethical as efforts to deceive. I will narrowly define the stock market as publicly traded equities. Otherwise, I risk sailing off into Bernie Madoff land and uncharted waters. The art market really is divided into two parts: the private art market, meaning the galleries, and the public market, the auction houses. In the private market, there are protections of the purchaser in the form of the Uniform Commercial Code in New York and the self-policing bodies like the Art Dealers Association of America. So I'm going to, these are not totally protective, but they serve a purpose. I'm going to focus then on the auction market. The press usually defines the art market as the auction market for contemporary art, which gets all the press, where prices have ballooned in recent years. And therefore, it has become press-worthy because big prices make for press. In the past few years, there has been rampant speculation. Until the middle 90s, a work that appeared at auction, if it reappeared within 5 years, it would be virtually unsaleable. And now works appear almost immediately after being purchased, or at least they did until the recent unpleasantness in the contemporary market starting in November. And because there's a new wave of speculators at each auction. This all really began in the middle 80s when art became monetized by the press and the financial institutions into a financial market. Sotheby's launched a financial services arm, Citibank, an art advisory department, and so on. Banks lent money on art, and auction houses lent money to buy art. Sotheby's chairman went to jail for colluding with Christie's on auction commissions. Art had become a serious financial asset. Whereas before the 80s, the market was tiny, it now became global. Thousands of people became involved. Billions of dollars changed hands. But except for foreign governments claiming repatriation of antiquities and Holocaust restitutions, and despite the sums of money involved and vast numbers of participants, our government seems to treat art as frivolous, as a luxury market with no regulation or oversight. As just one example, in the Bush administration tax code, when the capital gains tax was reduced from 28% to 15%, art remained at 28%, apparently because it was treated by the government as a luxury, not an asset class. The stock markets are highly regulated by law. There are also protections for individuals who trade in the market through fiduciaries, mutual funds, and so on. Regulation came about as a protection for individual investors. The art market, on the other hand, is totally unregulated. Things occur, particularly in the auction market, that are deliberately contrived to deceive the unsophisticated individual, and that would be subject to criminal penalties in the stock market. The most universally encountered is chandelier bidding, which means fake bids to entice bidders into competition, whereas regulations exist in the stock market to provide transparency. Chandelier bidding is specifically designed to deceive, to imply that there is competition when there isn't any. Novice buyers usually enter the market through auctions because they have no other way to establish values. Unlike securities, there are no two works of art that are identical or are in the same condition or have the same credentials. The only source of price comparison is auction databases, but again, comparisons are flawed. The novice auction bidder believes his only exposure is his incremental bid. He assumes that the underbid represents a willing and able competitor. But what if there wasn't any underbidder? What if the bid was a chandelier bid? When some years ago the issue of chandelier bidding was raised in New York's the Consumer Affairs Department, the auctioneers cried that to eliminate it would take the drama out of auctions, and they threatened to quit New York City. When I was quoted as saying that when I want drama, I go to Broadway, I was called a horse's butt. The only, I changed that word because my wife wouldn't let me, or somebody in my office wouldn't let me use it. The only result of the city inquiry was that the auctioneers were forced to identify items in which they have a financial interest or that are guaranteed, or most recently on which there are irrevocable bids, identified by minuscule symbols virtually invisible or incomprehensible to all but professionals. Otherwise, the auctioneers prevailed with their deceptive practices. In addition, the auction catalog disclaimers make it basically caveat emptor as far as authenticity and condition are concerned. In the private gallery market, the invoice establishes the guarantee by law. The real reason for the auctioneer's ethical ambivalence is the dramatic shift in role over the last 40 years from agent for the buyer, then as demand started exceeding supply, first as agent for both buyers and sellers, and then primarily for the sellers, the buyer paying almost all of the commission. Guarantees and irrevocable bids followed swiftly as further enticements to sellers. But the auctioneer's role remained ambiguous. The auctioneer was now wearing at least 2 invisible hats, and when he had an equity in the object, 3.
Richard, I have to interrupt you. Your time is up. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Feigen.